Hey, this is Ideacochise from History of Japanese Mixed Martial Arts Part 4. Now, in 2006, the Japanese media riddled Pride FC with their ties to Yakuza, and all the final details to that will be left in links in the description. This part is about Sengoku and DREAM, and for this particular piece of the history of Japanese MMA, it's going to be a lot less linear because both Sengoku and DREAM start at the exact same time, and I'm going to be switching back and forth. But either way, it's very informative, so let's get into it. After Shockwave 2005, Pride's good times are about to come to an end. In late 2005, early 2006, it was reported that Pride FC had major ties to the Japanese mafia, the Yakuza. Now, while it's common knowledge that the Yakuza runs both the MMA scene and the pro wrestling scene in Japan, Japanese people tend to turn a blind eye to it until it becomes headline newsworthy. One of the chairmen of Pride, a man named Naoto Morishita, allegedly killed himself. Some say that it was a Yakuza setup. The link in the description goes more into detail about this. Those allegations led to Pride completely losing its TV deal with Fuji TV. Sakuraba decided to jump ship and join the competitor K1 Heroes. Dents in the armors of Wanderlei Silva and Takanori Gomi took a lot of the aura away that those fighters had at the time. Stateside, the UFC with the Ultimate Fighter was really catching steam. But not all things were bad. Pride was still hitting its stride with the Openweight Grand Prix, which garnered a lot of interest even though Fedor was hurt and could not participate in it. In between that time, Pride made its first appearance in America. This event was not the best because Pride tried to showcase a number of American fighters while being famed for having an international roster. It was difficult to connect with the fans and the fighters that were on the card. During this time, more issues with the fighters in the organization came up. Mirko Cro Cop was going to leave the Openweight Grand Prix because of money issues after qualifying for the semifinals, a tournament which he ultimately won. Later in 2006, Cro Cop left Pride to sign a deal with the UFC. What was more perplexing is that Pride had plans for another lightweight Grand Prix, but in November 2006, they canceled the Bushido events, a showcase for lightweight fighters. Downsizing was already going on just by looking at the business moves alone. After the second American show, which was a showcase of upsets, Pride 33, combined with a year and a half of Yakuza scandals in the Japanese media, event cancellations, big stars venturing over to other places, and a heavyweight champ, Fedor Emelianenko, going to Bodog, a gambling/mixed martial arts organization that had fights based on the Cold War theme with Russia versus the Western world. Combine that as well with the Openweight Grand Prix champ Mirko Cro Cop being in the UFC, long-standing champions like Wanderlei Silva, who just lost at his belt at Pride 33, and Takanori Gomi, who lost 2 times while being the lightweight champ of Pride. All these things combined had Pride close its doors in April 2007. The original plan was for the UFC to buy it, run it, and keep it in operation for the most part the exact same way as it was running before. Much like how Nike owns Converse All-Stars, of course UFC didn't run more Pride shows after buying them and essentially bought a library worth $65 million. The UFC claims that the contracts that Dream Stage owns were all illegal, thus nullifying everyone. This is why the roster was not bought out immediately to merge with the UFC in 2007. K1 Heroes ran an American show and actually had the MMA debut of Brock Lesnar. Watching the introduction to that event was seeing just how confused the Japanese event planners were making a culturally sensitive MMA card. Heroes didn't really fold, but more on that later. Because of the swiftness in which Japanese biggest MMA organization was dismantled, Pride 34 was sorely lacking in star power, especially as a send-off to the company. The executives of M1 Global, Pride executives, and Deep got together and made Yorinoka. On December 31st, K1 Dynamite, an annual event that hosts both MMA and kickboxing rule fights, was taking place that same New Year's Eve. Both events held new talent as well as old Japanese mainstay talent, and both were worth the watch. Ideacochise was so well received that the guys from K1 Heroes decided to link up with some old Pride executives to create DREAM. Remember, Heroes was damn near a caricature of JMMA, but with those who were running it, which Akira Maeda was no longer a part of the committee, made DREAM become PRIDE-lite. In March 2008, both Sengoku and DREAM made their debuts. DREAM immediately started their lightweight and middleweight Grand Prix. DREAM had more fights, a higher production value, and a clear vision at the start. Sengoku just seemed to be shooter with the Fuji TV deal, with sparse big names of fighters here and there that are not even in the same weight class. Sengoku started the lightweight Grand Prix, which I like to call the road to Takanori Gomi that ended without Takanori Gomi. Remember what I was talking about when I was saying having a good opening first round for your Grand Prix? Well, Sengoku decided to give Gomi a pass all the way to the finals. Unfortunately, he lost between the start and the finish of those finals. It was a very odd split decision loss for him, but nonetheless it was a stupid move to grant him a pass in a Grand Prix that he was quasi a part of. After the Pride buyout, many MMA organizations began popping up and leaving as fast as they came, almost as a reaction to the UFC without any real business strategy to simply stay afloat. DREAM struck a deal with Strikeforce. Jason Miller and Nick Diaz will be making a few appearances in Japan. Miller tried his hand in DREAM's middleweight Grand Prix that saw the dark horse star Gerard Musashi win the belt and then give it up because he decided to go to heavyweight at one point. The match at DREAM 2 between Shinya Aoki and JZ Cavalcanti was going to determine the favorite to win the whole lightweight Grand Prix, until Eddie Alvarez began making waves. Great fights between him and Hellboy Henson, and then in the semifinals against Tetsuya Kawajiri. Even though he won that fight, he was left too banged up to compete in the finals with Aoki waiting for him. In a strange turn of events, Hellboy won it all, avenging his loss to Shinya that stemmed back from Pride 2 years earlier. Aoki moved up again to welterweight and got knocked out again. Then he got a title shot and finally became the star that the promotion always wanted him to be. DREAM's welterweight situation, however, was a mess, having major difficulties cutting weight for the semifinals of the DREAM welterweight Grand Prix. Maha Sakurai ended up losing a Grand Prix that should have been his. It was won by the White Mare Zaromskis, who then went 3-3-1 in his next 7 and never defended the belt. DREAM at this point had no light heavyweight division, no welterweight defending champ, no middleweight defending champ, no heavyweight defending champ, and a polarizing lightweight champion in Shinya Aoki. The promotion was looking bad, events were becoming more sparse, and the production values was declining considerably. I was lucky enough to use Mega Upload back in 2010 to download most of the Sengoku and K1 events for this History of Japanese MMA, which I'm doing right now. I'm going to tell you this. Sengoku was terrible. Outside of the Kazuhiro Misaki versus George Santiago fights and the rise of Maximo Blanco and Hatsuyoki, along with Omigawa hitting his stride, there's not a lot to say. It was a lot of fights that were evenly matched up, but in a bad way. Gomi, Yoshida, Kevin Randleman, Misaki, Josh Barnett all had issues with the promotion or the pay. After the one-time event in Korea, World Victory Road crumbled. There was promise in 2009's Dynamite that had the promotions facing off against each other. People are hopeful that DREAM and Sengoku would just merge together. But different Yakuza families had different interests, and unfortunately, that was the last time that JMMA was truly in its old form, was in this event. The Dynamites after that were just one shots, no real ramifications on anything. In 2011, it showcased both pro wrestling and women's matches. Female Japanese mixed martial arts will be something I'll touch upon in part 5. Inoki even hosted the event. I'm glad that the 2012-2013 Hot Topic Ronda Rousey made her UFC debut at 157 right before UFC Fuel TV 8. Join me next week for a recap of the Fuel card, Women's Japanese MMA, and the conclusion of my love letter towards Japanese mixed martial arts. Feel free to comment, Subscribe. Take care.